Welcome to the Fat Feminist Podcast. Today I'm ranting, raving, and wand waving with Natalie Zaman, author of Magical Destinations of the Northeast, Sacred Sites, Occult Oddities, and Magical Monuments, which was newly released by Llewellyn Publications last year. I've already reviewed the book, both on the show and on the blog, so you can find that at thefatfeministwitch.com or in the previous episode here on the podcast list. Today, Natalie and I discuss her book, some do's and don'ts of magical travel, why it's so important to pay homage to indigenous cultures when you're traveling around, especially someplace like the Northeast of the United States where colonialization really took root. We also have some fun talking about the types of souvenirs you can take home from famous graveyards and how much we both love magical coloring books. So find your best broom or vacuum cleaner and join us both on a little tour of magical destinations of the Northeast with Natalie Zaman here on the Fat Feminist Witch. Okay, so are you from one of the states that you've written about in the book?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm from Jersey.
Oh, amazing.
I'm a Jersey girl. Yeah.
I was actually pleasantly surprised by the section on New Jersey in your book. I found it to be one of my favorites in the whole book.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I've been to New Jersey, so I was like really surprised. I obviously didn't see a lot of the great stuff about New Jersey when I was there. I got to go back and take a better look.
Oh my gosh, when there was this show, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's like Stephen Fry's America.
Yeah.
Like Stephen Fry goes to every so he goes to every state, right? And when he came to New Jersey, he went to Atlantic City.
Oh no.
And yeah, I know. I'm like, of all the places to go to, you go to Atlantic City. And he's like showing a lot of senior citizens gambling and how it's like the saddest spot on earth and whatnot. And I was like, oh my God, really?
It's like going to Nevada and only going on the Vegas Strip. Like, you're not going to get a proper view of New Jersey from there.
It's we really do get the short end of the stick sometimes. There's a lot of awesome places in New Jersey. But yeah, no, the way that they made it sound was like we're like the armpit of the country. It's so unfair.
Yeah, I totally relate to that because I'm pretty sure it was 3 years ago Stephen Colbert referred to my city as like the asshole of Canada.
Ow!
Or Canada's rectum. That's what it was. It was Canada's rectum, and it got pretty popular because most of us laughed about it. Yeah. But it does hurt. There's cool stuff here. Okay, so New Jersey.
Yep.
That's amazing. Is that where, like, is that the first place that you visited? Any sort of magical or occult site?
Well, I mean, I was born here too.
Yeah.
So, so I've lived here my whole life. So I guess like in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure I've been to magical places here, and didn't know it even growing up. Yeah. Like we didn't live too far from Princeton. So, I went there a lot as a kid. Yeah. And I actually didn't get to travel too much as a kid either. I didn't really start like going places until I was, like late teens, like in college and stuff. So, a trip for me would be like going down the shore. Well, down the shore, that's what we say here. It's like one of those weird New Jerseyisms or whatever, down to shore.
Yeah.
So, but when you're a kid, anything can be an adventure. Like going into I have woods behind my house. I was really, really blessed to have something like that growing up. Yeah. And that was just an awesome thing to have that and to be able to go and kind of separate yourself, from the world, even if it was like for like 15 minutes or something like that, Yeah.
And once your concentration broke, you could still hear the road in the background, but for that little while.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, no. It's strange. I've been like, actually, this is like the third, fourth time like the whole woods thing came up, and I've been like, it's kind of been something I've been exploring about, and it's like a theme in literature about like how the witches in stories are always somehow in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're always in the woods. They're always like away from things and whatnot. So I'm like, okay, yep.
Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, every single old abandoned barn or shack or shed or something in the woods was the witch's house.
Yep.
Every single one. Because that's where witches lived. They lived in the woods.
Yes. And why not? Now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And you know what? I can't imagine how that would ever seem like a bad idea.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just like, if you want to get away from everything, and then you're surrounded by nature and creature.
It actually gets quiet there. It actually gets dark there.
Yes. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there's something to this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, New Jersey is obviously a very magical place.
Oh yeah. But yeah, this is Jersey. I would say, yeah, it's the first magical place because it was my original magical place.
Yeah. It's where it all started. It's what made you interested in magical places in the first place. It sounds like.
That and being a Sagittarius.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it. I feel like 90% of the people in my life are Sagittariuses. And I can't get y'all to sit still. You have to explore, and I love that because I love exploring. So New Jersey was technically your first magical place, but what would you say was the first magical or occult site that you visited kind of on purpose? And what was it about it that made it stand out as like kind of different?
Okay, I'm going to go back to a long time ago. A long time ago when I was a teenager. And I started going into, I actually live and pretty much almost anywhere in central New Jersey, and that's where I grew up. Anywhere in central New Jersey, you're pretty close to New York City.
Yeah.
It's not a far reach to get there, whatnot. Yeah. But when I was a teenager, it was a pretty easy thing to take the train from this town called New Brunswick, into yeah. Have you ever been there?
No, but it always makes me laugh because it's just so not far from New Brunswick, Canada.
No, it's true.
And every time I'm watching a movie and they say New Brunswick, I'm like, are they in Canada or the U.S.? And I always have to look it up.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, no, I lived in North Brunswick, which was not too far from New Brunswick. All the Brunswicks are kind of together, and I would go into the city via train and whatnot, and and walk around and do stuff with whatever 2 nickels I had to rub together.
Yeah,
at the time. Yes, exactly. And when I was, I guess, if you go even further back than that, I mean, I always kind of had an interest in the occult, but nothing where I actually, started, I guess, dabbling in things. It was when I was a teenager, and I think that's true for many people. It's like when you hit adolescence, that's when you start the dabbling.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, I was told about this store called The Magical Child. That you have to go there. Okay, well, where is it? Well, it's somewhere downtown. And I'm going to date myself here completely. Okay. And I think I even said this in the book. I was like, there were you didn't have cell phones.
Yeah. You had phone books.
That was about it. There were no Google Maps. There was really no place to look it up. And apart from my friends in New Jersey, I really didn't have family that would know where the local witch shop was in New York. And I couldn't ask, you know what I mean? So I spent a lot of time wandering around trying to find it. And it wasn't until I guess I was it was after college, and I had landed my first job. I was working in Manhattan, and I worked at St. Martin's Press of all places. And it was 2 months into the job, okay? And I found out I was pregnant with my oldest son.
Go figure.
And I was like, oh my God. It was, I mean, the thrilling, frightening, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how, I just started working there, and I was like, how am I going to tell whatever? Yeah. Because, when you're 22, I was 22 or something like that. And it was like, you don't think about these things, no. Then now and then when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, you just tell them and everything will be fine. It works itself out. But back then I was freaking out all over the place. So I went for a walk at lunchtime, and I'm walking around and St. Martin's Press was located in the Flatiron Building. It's that really fun 1920s.
I love the Flatiron Building. I love it.
I was on the 14th floor. It was awesome. I mean, and it was, they have those like letter chutes that go from like the very top of the building all the way down to the mailroom. I mean, there's like still a lot of details, that are really kind of cool that they kept.
That's my favorite place in New York. Whenever I go to New York, I stay at the Chelsea Hotel right down the street.
Okay,
because it's just like my favorite little area of New York. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that was it's a lovely neighborhood. I mean, like Gramercy Park isn't too far from there on one side. So I'm walking around just at lunch, and I was walking down one of the streets, like the nearby, because it's 23rd and 5th Avenue. And I look up, and there's the banner, The Magical Child.
That's so and
that
exciting.
Was it's weird, right? I mean, it was just like, because I can't, like, up until that point, I mean, I really didn't, like, seek out, like, sacred or magical sites. I mean, I just, I went places and whatever, and I was kind of, too busy trying to survive and do other, do other things like that. Stuff. Yes, exactly. To then, to now it's like a real, it's believe me, I know how privileged I am, to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But back then, again, I didn't really give it too much thought, but like, I remember looking up and seeing that banner and being like, after all this time, it found me, or I found it when I was ready to find it. And it was just like, okay. And after that, I mean, like, life happens and that kind of thing, but it was a little lesson too. It's like, keep your eyes open, Nat, because you never know when things will spring up on you. It's like the unplanned, unplanned is always the best.
It absolutely
is.
Especially when it comes to witchy stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I feel like when it just shows up all on its own, I'm like, well, I can't just ignore this.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
I've been looking for it forever. There has to be a reason it's here now.
Yes. I bought, like, again, it was one of those, I was still rubbing nickels together.
Yeah.
I still rub nickels together. But I mean, like, then I was really rubbing nickels together and hoping something would happen. Please, little nickels, make more nickels.
Yeah.
But I had the book that, I still have the book that I bought that day. It was called Culpepper's Book of Birth. And, it was like just, and it was just kind of cool that then I knew where it was. I, would go in and whatnot, and eventually it did shut. But now it's so strange because I've been to like some other places in Manhattan, Enchantments down, on
the pretty candles.
Yes.
Yep.
They, so they're connected to the magical child. And also Magical Realms, Lady Rhea's store up in the Bronx is also connected to the magical child because she knew Herman Slater and Ed Basinski. Ed Basinski trained her. So it was just like, this whole kind of circular, the thing. So, and it's like, these are years later that these connections have been like kind of connecting themselves. So,
yeah. You can trace almost all of it right back to that one spot that you were looking for forever.
Oh, yeah. Now it's a restaurant. And I think they have, like, every now and then there's, like, a reunion of magical child stuff, and it happens at that restaurant. It's very cool.
That actually is really cool.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was a fixture. And, I mean, it was, it was the Warlock shop before that. And then I think that was when it was back in either Brooklyn or the Bronx or I forget which borough it was in before that, but that was in the 70s.
Actually, the thing about the shops was one I really liked about your book, because I've been to a lot of the places in the Northeast, and magical shops are a thing that I always try to find now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I always try to find them on purpose, and sometimes I find them on accident. But so I thought I knew what to expect a little bit from the book. And then I saw your section right at the beginning about shops.
Right.
And there's probably not going to be a lot. And most of that is because of time and things closed down. But I really enjoyed having to think about what other magical destinations are throughout the book. Like, I was really expecting to see a lot of shops, and that's just not what I found. And there was tons of stuff on there that I didn't really expect, or that I never would have thought of as inherently magical. And not that I wouldn't consider them to be, like, powerful, just maybe not someplace I would visit if I'm looking for magic. One of the examples I have here is the Freedom Trail in Maine.
Right. Okay.
And I live in an area that I live in Windsor, Ontario, so it was very much on the path of the Underground Railroad, and there's lots of Underground Railroad sites here. So those are sites that I've visited, and I love visiting places like that, those historical locations. But I definitely never saw that stuff as magical. So what is it about some of that stuff? And then also your comments about First Contact Beach. There was a little bit of an activist flair in there about some of these places to visit that I think a lot of people wouldn't really consider them to be magical. What is it about those places that made you include them in the book?
Well, that was something that, I mean, when I thought about it, it was like, what is a magical place? Yeah. What's a sacred site? And I wanted to be very, very broad with that, not just because it gave me more material to work with, because certainly, I mean, like once it's like, oh, you can call anything magical. Well, I wanted it to be broad because I know it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Yeah. So, I mean, there's that. And then also, if you dig deep enough in some places, you find stories. And, there's something, it's funny, like when you're saying an activist flair, there's something magical and powerful in activism. I mean, just look at what's going on right now.
Oh my God.
I mean, I take breaks from the news because I just can't. If I look too long, I personally won't be able to function. I'll get too upset. And part of it is being upset about, just the things that are happening. Yeah. And then another part of it is being upset at, how very upset people I care about are about. And it's, I know that personally myself, it's like a lot of times it's like, you've got to be able to function and take care of yourself and take care of your own so that you can take care of these things when the opportunities arise, what I'm saying, to do things. But just like, not to get too far off on a tangent, just if you look at what's happening right now, there's a lot of power, emotions, magic in the activism that is happening now.
Yeah, lots of energy. Lots of energy.
And it's got to be a sustained effort, And I find with a lot of these places, because things were a sustained effort, like with the Underground Railroad, that energy lingers there. Yeah. And then there's also stories like the one in Maine that comes to mind with the Freedom Trail is the gentleman who was the tailor that would sew messages into the clothes. Oh, yeah. One of his stops. I mean, if that isn't an act of magic, I don't know what is. Because even if he did, even if he did it as a mundane thing, and this is something that I wonder, and I'm hoping that people get, mundane things are more than mundane things. Yeah. They always have been, and they always will be. I mean, think about even cooking a meal for friends or family and what you put into it and the effort. Yes, it's a mundane thing. Yes, it's a practical thing. Yeah. But you put a lot of emotion and care and whatnot into it. So you're not just nourishing the body, you're also nourishing the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thought behind the cooking that, I mean, it's the thought that counts in general, but behind the food in that example that really does the most. It's not necessarily just the food. And that's so true. And that's something, again, that I saw all throughout your book. I really loved in Washington, D.C., the examples of gods and goddesses that you could find everywhere in the statuary. And again, mentioning like Abraham Lincoln, which I feel like a lot of people would not, they wouldn't think, oh, the Abraham Lincoln memorial is going to be super magical. I feel like that's not something people would immediately think, but I really like how many kind of average people things hold a lot of magic in this book.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was the thing, like I said, one of my, if you want to call it a purpose or underlying purpose, was keep your eyes open, and your mind open, and be open to this energy, because no matter where you go, I mean, there's sacred sites that are inherently sacred and they have their own energy because of where they are or what they are. I mean, location. But then there's the type where people bring that energy to the place and it lingers there. Like these miraculous caves where saints were, and people bring their crutches and stuff and they leave them there and whatnot. Yeah. and they're leaving that gratitude and that awe and whatnot, and it's residual, and you can feel it. I mean, Lincoln Memorial, I mean, think of how many things happened there.
I actually teared up when I was reading that.
Yeah.
I tear up a lot, but I teared up a lot when I was reading the part about the Lincoln Memorial, because I was like, God, that just makes so much sense. So many incredible things have happened in this area that even if Lincoln himself or the memorial wasn't inherently magical, I mean, the kind of energy that's been expunged there and used up, and the kind of inspiration that people get when they visit that place now, that definitely leaves something behind.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a silly reference that, you know, if you've ever do you watch The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there was an episode, like a way old episode, where I think it's called Lisa Goes to Washington, or Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, and she writes this essay. Yes. Okay. So she goes to, you know, to talk to Abraham Lincoln, to tell him her problems, but that's something people really do.
Yeah.
They, you know, it's like to listen. It's like, you know, because he's supposed to be so wise. It's like Solomon. You know, so when people go there looking for answers, it's like they bring that hope, that anticipation, that, you know, whatever it is that they're bringing, and they leave it there, and it you know, again, it's there, you can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another way that I saw a little bit of activism here in your book, which I really liked, it was right at the beginning, and then again all throughout the book, you made mention of the indigenous tribes that are from these areas of the U.S., from the Northeast there, and you actually listed out quite a few of them. Not, I think it says that this isn't all of them, but these are the main ones that you can find.
Right.
And you listed all of them throughout each state, a little list of everybody, and like a little bit of guidelines for visiting Native American sites. Why was that so important to include in what most people would just see as a regular travel guide?
All right. So it's funny because like something happened after the book was written, and actually like when it was like in the process of like its finalization, that kind of hit home to me, but I'll get to that in a second. When I was doing the research, I mean, I am no expert on Native American affairs by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I Native American. And I can actually say that with confidence now that I've done the DNA test. I don't have a drop.
There you go.
Yeah. And it's, you know, so I am writing from a place of, again, someone of privilege about a group of people who have been wronged and taken advantage of, and God knows, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to make that up to them.
I don't know.
I mean, it's just, there's, you know, I mean, all you can do, I guess, is try your best and try to move forward and do the right thing and whatnot. But I really wanted to do some serious justice in that arena. And number one, it's like, you can't clump all Native American nations and their subgroups together. Absolutely. So I tried to break it out, and real estate in the book was not plentiful. So, you know, I wanted to write out as much as I could, you know, to like distinguish the different groups. And then you can't just go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's not respectful. You wouldn't walk into somebody's house.
Yeah.
Just, you know, whatever. But there are plenty of places where, as of the writing of the book, and remember, things can change. Absolutely. You know, rules can change, and it's a responsibility as a traveler to seek that out before you go somewhere.
Always look that stuff up before you go anywhere.
Absolutely. But there's plenty of places where visitors are welcome. Many Native American sites are in national and state parks and whatnot. And then you go there and there's, you be as respectful as you possibly can. Yeah. And then back to the DNA test. I had had dinner with some friends, and I was asked, hey, do you have any Scandinavian ancestry? And I was like, not that I know of. You know what I mean? My dad, my mom is Italian. My dad had always told us that we were Scottish, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You Scottish, English, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, I never heard of any kind of Scandinavian, whatever. Anyway, I was intrigued enough to do the DNA test and also go on Ancestry and whatnot.
I really want to do the DNA test.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an eye opener. I mean, there were some surprises. I mean, some not surprised. Like the 50% Italian. When it came back, and it was like 50% Italian. I'm like, yeah, okay, I knew that. But my dad's side of the family, which I really didn't know too much about, only like things that he told me, and he's since passed on, were. There was Scandinavian ancestry, and there my grandmother on my dad's side was half French and half Norwegian.
Wow!
But on his father's side, I'm a Mayflower descendant.
No way!
So I kind of see, and I'm working on the paperwork for that at the moment. But I have in my eyes, I have even more of a responsibility than to do justice where I can, and what little I can do. So hopefully I manage that in this, and hopefully if I get to do the rest of the series, the rest of any Native American nations that I encounter. And like I said, I hope that I've done what they've gone through, some justice, but how can I? Because I'm not Native American.
Yeah.
So I can't even begin to understand that struggle,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was really impressed with that section, because I feel like especially with pagans or New Age people, we tend to take a lot from Native culture, especially where I live. I don't know if that's because I live in Canada, and Native culture has kind of just seeped its way into everything we do here just a little bit, more so than I think some of the other places that I've been, but you rarely see any sort of mention of the fact that we've stolen a lot from Native culture or magical people. Like, people just talk about sage smudging all the time, or use the word smudge, and they don't have any sort of little context or footnote there, like, oh, hey, by the way, we slaughtered all these people. So, maybe ask before using words like smudging or gathering native herbs or something like that. So I was really impressed to see some mention of actual Native culture and being respectful to Native culture. So I was really excited to see that in the book.
Thanks. That means a lot, because that was an important point, even before my own personal discovery, like family discovery.
Yeah.
That just kind of hit it home, like even further.
Yeah.
So, you try to be as responsible and as respectful as possible, and when borrowing from any culture. I mean, I think, nowadays it's like we kind of, if something resonates with you, yes. I mean, I'm not going to say that I never looked at another culture and was like, and if something resonated with me, I didn't turn it away. But I think it's very important to recognize and give credit to that culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you certainly can't be like, you take something and then you treat the other party like garbage. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't do that. But I don't think they're thinking. That's the thing. I think that's what it comes down to. Because I really honestly believe that people are good. The majority is good.
Yeah.
That people really will help each other out. I mean, I've seen that in action. And I think when things like that happen, and I might even go with, I think like same thing like with what's happening in the States now.
Yeah.
I just don't think people are thinking. You know what I mean? And it's like if you really sat down, because we're moving, it's like we all have to resolve things right now and get it all done. Stop. Stop.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath, and and try to figure this out and really think about what's going on. Because can you imagine if we really thought about everything we did?
Oh my God.
We might not go anywhere, but that's.
I don't think it's possible to think of everything, but I feel like some people should maybe think of other stuff more often.
Yeah, but just think about a couple things.
Yeah, think about a couple different things from now on, maybe. Yeah, the stuff that's happening in your country is really bumming me out.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to say it. If I say it any other way, I think I'll get really upset. But it's really bumming me out. So like reading your book and remembering all the stuff I really love about America was a pretty nice feeling.
Thank you. We're going to get through this.
Yeah.
We're going to get through it. It's one day at a time, and the one day at a time is hard, easier said than done.
Oh, God. Some of these, it's only been like, it's been a week.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to happen. But like I said, it's a one day at a time thing. We got to just deep breath and you go. But there is good, and there's plenty of, you just have to, be aware of it. And there's so much. I mean, like I said, I really believe that people they're good and they will help each other. When we made the cross country trip that inspired this book, because we made this, one of my bucket list things was to drive across country, so we drove to California through the northern states and drove back to the Southwest. And I cannot tell you how many wonderful people I met.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were gone for a while, and I mean, we were in situations where we could have really gotten hurt, screwed, whatever you call it. One of them was like we broke down in the Texas Panhandle on the 4th of July at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And I cannot tell you how many people stopped. Hey, do you need water?
Yeah.
Do you want us to wait with you? Do you need a ride? Do you need to use a cell phone? Do you need anything? And people are good. So, gotta just keep faith that it's going to work out. It's going to work out. We're going to do this. We are going to do this. We're going to do it. No.
I agree. And you know what? I've visited a few American states, and I've never really had a bad experience. The people I met there, like you said, they're amazing. They're amazing. They're helpful. They know even more about Canada than the people in Detroit right across the river do. When I was in Salem, Massachusetts, they were like, hey, isn't it Canadian Thanksgiving? And directed me to a place with good turkey sandwiches. I'm like, that's wild. People in Detroit think I live in an igloo.
Oh, dear.
Some of them. But I found nothing but great people across the states. And actually, you just gave me a perfect lead into my next question, which was, what inspired you to write this book about this section of the states? Why did you pick this place to start?
Well, the book actually this is very different than what I originally proposed. I originally proposed one book with all 50 states. It was going to be 2 sites per state, the emblems and the stop by for a spell, because I really wanted that to be a part of things.
Oh, yeah, I love that section.
Yeah. And and when we ended up selling the idea, Llewellyn was like, okay, this is really a cool idea, but we want more quantity, more sites, more of everything.
Yeah.
So let's break it up into 4 books. And they decided to start with the Northeast, which was a gift to me because that's my home turf.
Yeah.
And it was very easy for me to get around from place to place, just about those 12, including DC, because it's not a state technically, but these 12 places, I could drive to all of them. Some of them a little far, some is a little crazy, but I've done it.
It's the joy of traveling. I think the road trip is my favorite part of any vacation, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, there's nothing like seeing it from the ground. So it was just like, okay, we're going to do it that way. So we ended up expanding things. After I wrote the first draft, it was like, okay, there were a lot of parks and natural places, but it was like, let's do something more, more museums, more things like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and it was just more material and whatnot to work with, because I'm very much a city person. I grew up, like I said, in New Jersey. I grew up going back and forth to New York. So, museums and shops and things like that are really, I was thrilled to be able to add stuff like that to it. And then, we ended up putting in tidbits and folklore, because I would find little pockets of, oh, so-and-so lived here.
Yeah, that's too interesting to leave out.
Yeah, exactly. And we had to take some things out. There were, like I said, real estate was really valuable. At the end of the day, it was like, well, we don't have any room for acknowledgments. Okay, I'll put them on my website. Well, let's cut down the bibliography. Okay, well, I'll put the whole thing on my website. So the bibliography in the book is abridged, but I have the the whole thing with active links and everything on my website.
Oh yeah, so, I've been clicking through it, I think, for the last week.
Yay! Yes, please report any links that don't work, because I'm constantly fixing them. If something isn't there anymore, if a resource has been pulled or whatnot, then at least I could find it somewhere else to give the reference.
That's super fun. So you visited all the states, and you were going to actually write all the books. So what are the areas of the other books? Because a few people actually asked me, they're like, is she going to write other books for other sections of the states? And I was like, I'll ask.
Well, the plan is, and again, everything depends on, if this book sells well.
Yeah.
That's just the way of the world. And I think so far it's doing okay. The plan is that the next one will be the West, followed by the South, and then followed by the Midwest. So the West, I think, is Alaska, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, California. They're all about 12, 13. And I think, 12 to 13 states. Yeah. And I think the biggest one is the Midwest. That has the most states in it.
That's that one's gonna be my book. That's technically where I live.
I cannot wait to do the Midwest. There's lots of stuff hidden in there. My mother-in-law lives in Michigan. I love going there. It's it's all sorts of fun stuff going on.
I love Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I really love Michigan, and Detroit is. It's amazing. It's amazing. Detroit is amazing. Ferndale has a lot of magical people in it and a lot of magical stuff happening all the time. So I think you'll really like getting to the Midwest.
Oh yeah, no, and Ohio and oh gosh, yeah. So I can't, I just can't wait to do that one. But patience.
I can't wait for all of these. I'm so excited. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff in that book that I just had I had no idea about at all. I was really surprised by how many small little cultures live all over the Northeast, especially the Pennsylvania Dutch. I found to be super, super interesting.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know how fun and magical everything about their culture is the only word I can think to use, but how fun and magical some of their cultures and customs and traditions and stuff are. And I totally forgot what my question was related to that. Whoa, maybe I need a second coffee. That's a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I only had one.
I also loved how funny the book was. The bit about, was it Cotton Mather or was it his dad? The witch hunter.
I think it was Cotton Mather. Oh, you were talking about Spy Pond, right?
Yes, Spy Pond.
Okay.
Where the water spirit there dumped Cotton Mather out of his canoe. Give the
I've got a high five. I got a shout out to my friends Blake and Gwen for turning me on to that, because they were like, oh, they had told me about Spy Pond, so I did some research and I was just like, oh no, I was like, this has to go in there.
I could not stop laughing. It's just that kind of stuff is a lot of fun, and it's something that I feel like would be difficult to find out any other way. Unless you know someone who lives there. That's something you would never find out in any other way. I really liked how many locals you obviously talked to get some of this information, not just the sit down for a spell. How many times did you feel like you had to talk to people that lived there and get some of these weird little inside stories that most people don't really realize?
Oh, I stuck feelers out from the beginning. When I was, I still write for Witches and Pagans, yes. Magazine. And that actually has brought me to many different places and has connected me to many different people. So, as soon as I knew this was going to be a thing, it was like, okay, who do I know in Maryland? Who do I know in Delaware? And I was just like, okay, guys, if you had to say, a magical site that you wanted to share, because let's face it, there's also places that are, not off limits, but that you're not going to share because they're either too personal or, they're the kind of place that you got to stumble upon.
Yeah.
There are
it's just
several
not the same if you don't find it yourself sometimes.
Exactly. And there's also places that are definitely off limits. There were places that I found and they were online, like these standing stones in New England.
Yeah.
There's this one called, they're calendar sites. They're all called calendar sites because they line up. There's stones that line up with like the equinoxes and the solstices. Some of them are on private property, so they're off limits anyway. But some of these are really potential, and I say potential because we really don't know the history. They have not been studied. Potential Neolithic sites.
Wow.
And if they are, you really don't want people messing with them.
No.
I mean, I've heard tell of people who are like, they have these stone formations on private property, and people would be seeking them out, so they just tore them down. You know, because they're on my property. I don't want trespassers on my property. I mean, it's like,
that makes me really sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, but again, that's why, like, there's certain things that are off limits, you know. But I would put the word out, and that was another thing. Like, if I found something like that, it would be like I would try to go to the ends of the earth to find, you know, is this a place where people can go?
Yeah.
And if there was no answer, then it was like, you know what, you're not going to find out about it from me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's just not a good idea to share stuff like that, you know.
Did you find a lot of sites like that?
A handful.
Okay.
You know, a handful of places where I would try to seek it out, probably places I'd like to try to see myself, but there's no guarantee that I could get in there, even with the, you know, going through the proper channels, and that's contacting the person whose property it is.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there was one that I had contacted that the formation on this property also may have been related to H.P. Lovecraft, like, and in some of his stories were like that inspired him to, you know, write about
That's
them.
Awesome.
That, you know, and she was very forthright and was just like, no, we do not allow people on the property. We feel that we are the custodians of these objects, ergo there will be no access to them.
Yeah.
I respect that, because it's just like, you know, I mean, it's not like they're trying to, you know, they're trying to preserve it, which is like, that's the thing to do.
So, it absolutely is.
Yeah. The other thing is, like I said, as for like the tearing down thing, remember, it's I heard tell. Yeah. I didn't actually, you know, that again, and that's another thing that I learned in doing the research and whatnot for this book, is that when it comes to history and when it comes to events, happenings, et cetera, it's all very relative. There's a lot of layers and stories and people's opinions. So there are things we may never really know the whole truth. Yeah. And, you know, you kind of have to work within that frame of, you know, reference or whatever. But, I would, for the other, I stuck out feelers all over the place, and, you know, and that'll be the same for the next and the next, because there's nothing like a local voice or someone who's lived in a place forever or was born there who could tell you, you know, okay, you know, yeah, you really need to make sure that people are aware of X, Y, or Z.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The locals are the best source of that. They're the best source of that. Before I went to Salem in October a few years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great, but I'll never go back in October. And if I had just listened to the people who live in Salem who warned me of that beforehand, my trip might have been a lot different.
Well, you know what, though? You kind of have to... You kind of have to see it in its glory like that, because it's, you know, and summertime is a little bit crowded and whatnot as well, but it's nothing like October. Oh, wow. You know,
I've never seen so many people in such a small area before in my life. Didn't eat at a single restaurant because I couldn't get in.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I've gone to Salem at all different times of the year.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always open. It's always, you know, the things are always there. Yeah. Yes, there are certain things that happen at you know, Halloween Samhain that, you know, that don't happen in the springtime. But,
all the fun, silly monster stuff and like wax museum style haunted houses and stuff. I was like, wow, I didn't really expect that. I still did it, but I didn't expect it to be there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I definitely believe in talking to the locals about the stuff. They know stuff about the areas that no one else could find out. That's not on the internet or in a book anywhere. I mean, until now.
Absolutely.
Until now, your book is so much fun. It's a lot like like I said, I could tell that you would talk to a lot of local people because there's quite a bit of stuff in there that's just not stuff you really usually read in a book. It's stuff you usually have to find out by getting lost in some of these places. So I really appreciated not having to get lost.
Oh, thank you. Awesome.
Because I get lost. One of the things I really liked in the book, and I liked seeing a lot of, because I also like this, was graves and gravestones that people would find really interesting. I love finding graves and old gravestones, especially in old graveyards. The older the better. I just think they're really interesting. And you have kind of a history with graveyards here. You also helped co-create the Graven Images Oracle, which has a lot of pictures of gravestones and cemeteries. What is it that you find about visiting these old gravestones that is so interesting to you?
I've always loved cemeteries. I think they're very peaceful places.
They are.
And it's also it's a multifaceted place. You know, I mean, yes, it's a place where where the dead are buried, but it's historical record, it's museum, it's park.
Yeah.
It's so many things, all sorts of, hidden, little gems to find. And usually, I mean, and the other thing is they're also free. Yeah. It's seriously, I mean, it's a place that you can go and spend hours and see so many things, and it won't cost you a dime. I mean, that's a small thing, but it's just, you could learn a lot from, and not just about history or whatnot, but you could learn a lot about a town by visiting its cemeteries. You'll see if if you go into an older graveyard and you look at the names of the streets, you'll find them in the cemetery. Yeah. Because normally those streets have been named after people who have built up that town.
That's true.
And whatnot, And then there's then there's unusual graves and making gravestone rubbings where it's allowed. There's just so much. And then there's the whole stories of the people who made those stones and who carved them. I know that now you can get pictures and stuff etched into granite tombstones and whatever, but on some of these older, there's a handful of carvers.
Yeah.
Not. I mean, I'm sure there's many carvers, but I'm thinking, in New Jersey, in the the 16th century, there were a few that were well known, like Ebenezer Price.
That's so cool.
And and he did stones all over the place. He's buried himself in Elizabeth. Well, he didn't bury himself, but you know what I mean? Oh, man, that didn't come out right. He is buried in Elizabeth.
Wow, man of many talents. Yeah.
Yes. Who would have thought? But I do every year I live near a town called Boundbrook, and they have an older cemetery next to the library with a lot of Revolutionary War dead in it.
Cool.
And there's a couple of Ebenezer Price stones in there. And this year was pretty cool because I was doing a gravestone rubbing demonstration, but they also had a guy who was an expert on a few of the carvers that worked within the different counties in the area. So we were able to talk about their lives and whatnot. It's so funny. It's everything is so interconnected and whatnot. There's always a little thread that goes somewhere.
Now I really want a book about tombstones. That's really interesting. I didn't know that much about gravestone carvers, to be honest. I feel like it's something I never looked up, and now I think I'm going to try.
There's the folks who did the Stop By for a Spell for Maine.
Yes.
They just came out with a book that goes into all of that kind of stuff. Oh, I don't remember the name of it, but if you look up gravestoneartware.com, then you'll find their book and all sorts of other stuff. But they've been doing gravestone studies and gravestone art and that kind of stuff for years. And another good book is Stories in Stone by Douglas Keister. It goes into all sorts of symbolism, excuse me. And lots of good pictures in there as well. So.
I love pictures. Yeah, so stop by for a spell from Maine. Paulette Chernak and Cassandra Davidson.
Yep. Gravestone Artware is an amazing
friendly gravestone rubbing kits.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, Gravestone Artware. I'm definitely going to be looking that up. That's really interesting. I like I said, man, I'm learning so much from this book. I'm learning so much of this book. So, grave rubbings. Tell me a little bit more about that. Did you do that a lot on your with some of the graves that you have here in the book, some of the more well-known graves? Is that something you're allowed to do with something like Edgar Allan Poe or H.P. Lovecraft?
All right. So I have a couple funny stories about this. So I always, again, I liked doing gravestone rubbings because they're kind of like free souvenirs.
Yeah. Okay. They really are.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, that was something I liked to do. And especially when like I said, later in life, when I was able to travel more, it was a good way to and I liked the cemetery. So it was a remembrance of the cemetery and remembrance of the people that I would go and see. So I think it actually, that started like way back even when I was teaching, and we took students over to, we did an overseas trip. We went to England and we went to France, and I got to make rubbings of like Jim Morrison's grave and whatnot. I know, Oscar Wilde and whatnot. And then it was funny because like years later, after my daughter was born, we went back, and I was like, because I didn't have the rubbing anymore. I must have given the copy I had away, and I was like, okay, we're back here. I was like, how often do I get to come here? I was like, going to the cemetery, I'm going to make a rubbing of Jim Morrison's grave. Fair enough. We get there, and now there's a fence around it. I mean, there was always like some sort of, person kind of hanging out there.
Yeah.
Because like people would like write stuff on it. There used to be a bust years ago, and that's gone. Now it's just like this like kind of bronze plaque with a stone.
If people were just cool about it in the first place and just hung out there and like smoked their pot and left a little note on the grave, then none of this would happen now.
No, but when I went, there was a fence.
That's so
and I'm
sad.
looking at it, and there was nobody there. There was just like the grave and the fence, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at my daughter, she must have been like maybe, let's call her 11 or 12 at the time, maybe 10, 11 in there. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, I could go in there. And she's like, Mom, I do not want to go to French prison. I was like, no. I was like, we won't go to French prison. I was like, there's nobody here. You just look out. No, let's not do it.
I don't want to go to French prison.
And I'm like, Mary, what happened to the Mary who like would, had adventures and all this other kind of stuff? And she was like, I left her at home. We are not going into that whatever. So I was like, okay, fine. So we left, and we went around, and I made a rubbing of Oscar Wilde's grave, and I made some other stuff, and then we came back, and lo and behold, when I came back, there were people around the grave, not like guards or anything, but just people.
Yeah.
And there were little lit candles inside, right? And I was like, really? I was like, someone went in there. And they were like, just like a bunch of hippie kids. And they were like, yeah, we went in and look, we took these pictures of ourselves with Jim and whatnot. I'm like, I'm going in there, right?
Yeah.
So they all were watching. I made rubbings for all of them, made one for myself, and that's when the guard came and threw us out.
Perfect.
And we did not go to French prison. It was all good. So there we have it. But yeah, no, there's places where you're not allowed to make rubbings. New England is kind of infamous for that. Especially in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we managed to sneak in a few of H.P. Lovecraft before that, the park ranger came around and told us that was a no-no. I kind of rolled them up and put them in the car and was like, okay, we won't do that again. I'm very, very sorry.
I had no idea. My bad.
Yeah, but they're if there are rules, they're usually posted. And again, it's one of those things where, you got to be responsible and look it up. But I think I want to say like almost the whole of Massachusetts, unless you get permission because you're archiving something, they don't allow it. Because if you don't do it right, you really can do damage.
A gravestone.
Yeah.
I really believe that. When I was in Salem, I saw the tombstone of someone who had come over on the Mayflower, and there was like almost like an iron or a steel kind of casing around the actual tombstone, kind of holding it all together, so that if people touched it on the edges, they weren't actually touching the stone. I still saw kids playing leapfrog over it, though, and that really bummed me out.
Oh, dear.
It really bummed me out. But But wow, that's really cool. That's something I didn't know and didn't even actually plan to ask you about. But that's really interesting now. They are like free souvenirs. I collect like every little bit of paper that I get on my travels. I collect and bring home. Like I have a stack of basically what is Salem junk mail. Yep. Like sitting in a box, and it's my like precious souvenirs. That's really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, like I said, really good way. I mean, like, you could always take pictures, too. But it's something that you've made yourself and whatnot, you know. And if it's done the right way, and like I said, if you're in Massachusetts or another state that doesn't allow it, you know, write to the town beforehand. I mean, the worst I could say is no. Be like, I'm archiving XYZ. It requires a little bit of planning beforehand, but worth it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. So other than, you know, grave rubbing supplies, do you bring any other items with you when you're visiting magical locations? So a lot of these magical locations, I notice there's a little spell or prayer or meditation that you can do while you're there, while you're actually in the actual location. Do you bring any stuff with you when you go on kind of a magical vacation? Is there anything that you use out there, or do you just kind of use the stuff that's already available?
Well, at first I always bring like a notebook and a pen with me to write down stuff, because it'll just, you know, even though if something profound happens, chances are I'll forget it because it's just the way my mind works nowadays.
Yeah.
If there's a place where an offering needs to be made or where it's appropriate, because you know, that's another thing, like you don't want to just leave stuff places. It's always like either some sort of a small stone, something very non-invasive.
Yeah.
You know, pennies are a favorite if you can, especially if you can collect stuff with like specific dates on it. You know, that's important. Smart. And even, a puff of breath is is you're leaving something. Yeah. Someone had pointed out to me, and this is very true, and I can't remember who it was, because again, remember my mind, I forget things, but it wasn't me. This was not my idea. So I want to give credit where credit is due. It's like just even going there is a thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even just like leaving a bit of your, like I said, like people go to certain places and they leave energy behind. You're leaving energy behind you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so.
And I mean, aside from that, you got footprints and stuff that are trampling through there. So.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. A few people have asked me to ask you if you bring any sort of magical tools with you, because they're like, does she just kind of do these spells like on the fly when she's standing on a cliff? And I'm like, you know what? I bet she does, but I'll ask.
Well, I mean, like stuff like drawing something in the dirt, you could do with your finger. You could also do it in the air if you don't feel comfortable, drawing in the dirt. And the other thing too is like, depending on where it is, if it's a Native American site, like I'm thinking the Sleeping Giant in Connecticut, it's a park. You're talking about like Native American deities and mythology, and asking their help with something. You know, you're not going to leave something that would be litter or whatever. It would be like some sort of a natural thing. Yeah. Now, if I'm actually going to a place where I'm going to ask for help, I would bring things with me that would be non-invasive. Like that would be like an acceptable offering, like a crystal or like a little bundle of herbs and whatnot. You know, you say that, you respectfully ask this. You know, I know that I am not of this, and now ask forgiveness or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Also, without damaging the area, if there's like, I've done stuff where I've like, pine cones that have fallen or a pebble in the path. Something like that. You're kind of, you've moved something that's already there, just like to another area or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, I've never brought like, well, first of all, my own practice, I don't really, use a lot of magical tools stuff and whatnot. Yes.
Yeah.
I find that when I make altars, again, a lot of it is mundane. On my Instagram, I have I tried to post a picture of my Samhain altar, which was like all, ancestor stuff. And it was all just like my own dishes and plates full of food and whatnot. And I ended up like writing names on pumpkins and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't use a lot of stuff.
I find that, like, the more things, and I don't know if it's because as I've gotten older, the more things I have, the more distracted I am.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, and I like stones and whatnot, and I like working with that kind of, I like working with materials like that. I also like things that I can leave places. Like, okay, I have this stone, I put energy into it, I've done this, and now I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to leave it here, and it's not going to come back to me. It might
find its way to someone else, but it's
well, that's it. Be purified through weather and earth and all sorts of other things, and then it will go into the hands of someone who needs it.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing. But I'm finding, yes, I just like the less I have, the better. You know what I mean? And I like stuff. Let me tell you, I like stuff. But I find that that the more transient it is, the better. That it cycles in and out of my life. There's always something that'll come to me.
Yeah.
And that it's time to put something back.
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, the amount of emphasis that was put on the stuff you need to, like, be Wiccan, especially, because they have, like, a list of tools. Wiccans are always my scapegoat. I feel kind of bad, but they're the most organized. So they always have, like, these lists of tools and of stuff that you need to be able to do all these things, and I always got really hung up on the stuff. Yes. And I feel like now that I use less stuff, it's way easier to just kind of on the fly.
Yes.
Just do stuff, and I end up doing magical stuff more often.
Yeah, but then there's folks that are very effective with stuff.
Oh, yeah, they make great use of stuff.
Yes. That's not what works for me.
Yeah, I get distracted by stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the magpie that way. If it's shiny, it's like, ooh, and then I'll be, like, focused on the shiny and not what I'm supposed to be focused on.
Yeah, I love pretty stuff, especially, like, pretty witch stuff. Yes. And the other day, just yesterday, I was rearranging my room, and I'm like, okay, this altar has grown past this table, right? It's time to set up a second one. And I'm like, why do I have 3 chalices? Like, I don't know that I've used one in more than 10 years. And one of those is, like, less than 5 years old. So why do I still have all of these?
Well, that's what again, like, when I did the altar, I ended up, like, going through my cabinets, and then, like, I found glasses that came from an aunt and uncle who had passed on, and they found their way into my house. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to put the anisette in. And I put that out, and I was like, and it was in Aunt Ange and Uncle Frankie's glasses. And I was like, that's perfect. It's perfect for what it is now. This came from this and whatnot. And then at the end of the day, and I put everything out after it was all over and washed them and put them back. But that sounds like the mundane, the mundane and the magical go together, very much so.
Always.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, magic's got to fit into your real life. Otherwise, it's not really doing anything for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about the book? Or I know that when it comes to your own kind of artwork, there's always your favorite part that no one else realizes is actually the best.
Oh dear.
Always.
It's so funny because, like, when folks will ask me, like, it's like, okay, well, or what's in the book, or what's, this or that or whatever. And I totally go deer in the headlights and be like, I don't know. Because at the end of the day, when we did a count, there were over 300 places in that book, in this particular book that we could go to, and I'm just like, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, and then it's like, well, what favorite places are there? Well, I think it also depends on, like, mood and things like that. It's like, well, where would I want to go to now? So I guess it really depends. I've really been thinking, like, nowadays I've been thinking I'd really like to go back to DC, for various reasons and whatnot, just to kind of, soak things up and be there. I just haven't had the time to, to kind of go down there. And I kind of I want to go back and, just kind of, not just explore, but, like, kind of, like, I really would like to go to the Museum of the American Indian and sit in the circle where the medicine wheel is, and just kind of sit there and just kind of, think about things and whatnot.
Especially now, I know for the Women's March, a lot of Indigenous protesters all gathered at that museum, and they did prayer circles and stuff beforehand. So I bet the energy there is still a little bit, charged.
The outside of that building is just incredible. I mean, what's inside is wonderful as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, people tend to ignore the exteriors. That one you really shouldn't. because there's so much going on out there. I mean, there's grandfather stones there. There's, like I said, the medicine wheel that's, in the, I guess like the warmer months, there's crops growing there. Yeah, it's an incredible place. And I feel like I should at least go there and give thanks for what I was able to do. And, maybe, I don't know about asking for a blessing, but like, asking for, guidance for whatever comes next. But I could have done better or what needs to be improved or, what needs to be fixed and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm thinking like, maybe in the next like month or two or a couple months, I might find myself going down there again because I need to be there and see what's going on.
So my last question was, what state are you most excited to explore or write about next? I mean, you've got a lot of them left. Which one are you most excited about?
All right. So if I get to do, like I said, the next one would be West.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about Alaska.
Oh,
very, very excited about Alaska.
Me too. You know what? When I was thinking about this question, I was like, I think I'm most excited for Alaska because I know nothing about Alaska.
Oh, yeah, definitely I already started pulling different things and, there's, again, like, how you were saying, like, there's like different, like little pockets of cultural surprise things that, you might not. I mean, I've already started digging stuff up about like, just like, not just, I mean, there's obviously the indigenous culture that's already there, but like all the folks that came with the gold rush and many different, and what they left behind. I mean, and of course there's all the natural stuff as well. Yeah. And so, I'm really looking forward to that. And that might be, another road trip. I've been to several of the states out West, and I don't know. I mean, like Hawaii is also in that, I guess, like in that group. Yeah. And while I would love to go to Hawaii, I've known, and this is going to be strange. Okay. I would love to get there someday. I don't know if I would get there to do the research for this book. I know enough people that have been there and that have spent time there that I can interview and whatnot to get a feel for things. And there's a lot of research that I can do because even with like visits, I in this book in the Northeast, I would say I've been to like about 85% of the places in the book. Not all of them by a long stretch, but, quite a bit. And a lot of it's because it's my home turf. I know in the West, I'm not going to be able to actually go to every single spot. And a lot of it is going to be research. Right now, can't see myself on a plane for 12 hours. Oh. I think that would just absolutely drive me insane.
Just thinking about it bums me out.
Exactly. So I don't know if I'd actually get there. But Alaska, I'm looking forward to like doing more in-depth research, but also, seriously, possibly to go there.
That would be amazing. Alaska's, like I said, Alaska's one of those places that I just, same with all the northern territories here in Canada. I mean, there's this amazing indigenous culture that a lot of people don't know a lot about, but there's also like the other people that moved up there and chose to live there and have made like this life out there that most people that live below that parallel line could never imagine. Never in a million years. So I think that one's going to be super exciting. I'm really pumped for that.
Yeah, same here. So I mean, like, if I had to pick one, definitely Alaska.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of the most mysterious states there is.
And then there's all the wintry things. I love winter. Personally, it's one of my. It's kind of tied with fall as my favorite season, but like just like the land of snow. That's why I loved All right, granted, Narnia got better after they got rid of the White Witch, but I liked it when the White Witch was there.
It was pretty. It was so pretty. That the light post is just it's not the same without the snow all around it.
I know, right?
I agree with that. I'm not even a big winter fan, and I kind of agree with that. Whenever I picture Narnia, there's still snow.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, there you go. Like the land of Narnia. It's like, that's I can't.
Being an adult is weird.
I know, right?
I can't believe I'm still talking about that. My mom and I have been talking about Narnia since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Same conversation all the time. I love it.
I will always talk about Narnia.
Yeah,
there you go.
I can't let that one go. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm really excited. I really do hope this book does well and you get to keep going with all of these, because this has got to be one of my favorite travel guides of all time.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot.
Yeah, I
really
collect travel guides, and they're never quite as interesting as this one is. Like, I read it all the way through, cover to cover, like it's a storybook, because there are tons of actual stories in it, and I really liked that.
Awesome. No, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, that's everything I have for you today.
Awesome. No, this was fun. This was awesome.
Good. I'm really glad that you could be on the show today, and I am really sorry about last week.
Oh, no. I was, these things happen. I mean, what do you call it? Yesterday, or was it Sunday? No, yesterday was Sunday, right? Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's already happening.
It was the weekend, right? The other day, like I said, I did an interview, and again, it was Skype, but then they didn't have internet. And I mean, what are you going to do? It is what it is. So,
yep.
These things happen. So yeah, no worries. Oh my gosh. I hope I get to come back sometime. That's no pressure.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely have you back, because I want to talk about like actual like magical places, like a lot more. And I have a lot of American listeners. I hate to say it. I have a lot more American listeners than I have Canadian listeners. There's almost no Canadians listening to me at all. So, so being able to talk about, I can't talk that much about stuff in the States just because I'm only there sometimes. So I would love to have you back on the show.
Oh, awesome! Thank you so much. Yeah, no, there's another book coming out in it's not the next Magical Destinations book, but we've got I'm working with an artist, Wendy Martin, and we have a coloring book coming out in the fall. I'm really excited. It's a magic spell coloring book. It's called Color and Conjure. Llewellyn's putting it out, so I'll make sure you get a copy of that one.
Oh my God, I am so excited about that.
Yeah,
this is the year of magical coloring books, man. I'm pumped. I'm all the way about coloring books now.
Have you seen that planner? No, you must have reviewed that planner. There's some sort of
the planner. I'm looking at it right now. It fucking rocks. Okay.
Yeah.
What is it? The Coloring Book of Shadows planner for 2017. I love it. I've been using it, and whenever I have the desire to doodle all over the place, I just grab my colored pencils or a colored pen, and there's already something beautiful there for me. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I love that.
I'm really into it. I have a lot of fun coloring it every week.
That's it. And I like the way she just organized it and just has because it's planner, it's reference book, it's so wonderful.
It's everything. I know she did a really great job on that. And she's the reason I'm so into these magical coloring books now, because I can't get enough. I can't get enough of this. And some of my stuff is still silly. Like there's a picture of it's probably supposed to be a wolf or something, but I turned it into the Johnny Cash space coyote from The Simpsons. Because I was watching that episode because it always makes me happy.
Wait, is that the one where he eats the pepper?
Yeah.
The chili cook-off. Okay, all right, good. Okay.
That episode's got to be 25 years old.
Oh my God.
I remember watching it when it premiered on TV. Yeah. But yeah, it was Johnny Cash as a space coyote, and this little coyote wolf guy turned into a space coyote.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I'm having some fun
with The Simpsons. Yep. Oh dear.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today, Natalie. I'm really excited about the book, and I really hope it does well and that people realize how amazing it is.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you for coming on. I had fun too. Thank you again to Natalie for joining me on the show today, for sending me the book in the first place, and really for writing it. I really enjoyed the entire experience. She said it a few times throughout the show, but I'm gonna say it again. Please buy the book from Amazon, from a local bookstore. Talk to your local metaphysical or new age shops. Maybe they haven't heard of the book. Ask if they can get it in. Stuff like that helps these authors write more of these books. I really think this book has a lot of value, and I would love to see the other parts, especially because I know you are all excited about that section on Alaska. Or if you don't like the winter, Hawaii. I am too. So please check out the book, Magical Destinations of the Northeast by Natalie Zaman, released through Llewellyn. And leave it reviews on Amazon, on Goodreads, on anywhere. Tell your friends about it. Thank you again for tuning into the Fat Feminist Witch, and I really hope you'll join me later in the month. February 22nd is National Margarita Day, and to celebrate and to give us all a break from the horror that is our current political reality here in North America, I will be doing a practical magic megasode. So I'll be covering some silver screen spellcraft from the film, so you can do some of the magic there. And so you can avoid doing some of the magic there. I'll also be talking about the novel that the movie is based on, and tackling some of the sketchy herb and magic rocks that were featured in the film. So come back later in February for a pick-me-up on National Margarita Day, February 22nd. Thanks again for tuning into the Fat Feminist Witch. Stay magical, everybody.